Thank you so much, Dr. Bangani. I really appreciate the opportunity to be part of the Library Research Week this year. I'm just briefly switching on my camera. I'm also going to switch it off just now because the weather and everything might affect the bandwidth, and I don't want the session to stagger on anyone's side. So just again, morning, I'm Selene. I'll be sharing my slides quickly. And as Dr. Bangani said, it's a very interactive session. So there will be a lot of opportunity for everyone to ask questions, share their ideas as well. And I do hope for a lot of interaction. So this session will focus on the basics of writing a proposal, how to get it started, and how to use it to develop your ideas further. I'm just quickly checking if I opened the correct one. Let me just... Yes, it seems like this is my apologies. We are running multiple workshops this week, and I just want to make absolutely sure. I'll also keep an eye on the chat to see if there's any questions, and you're welcome to also raise your hand. And please do participate as much as you can. So one of the challenges of writing a research proposal, I'm using this quote by Knight about how which is a little bit tongue in the cheek, about how research proposals are a lot like a marriage proposal. You make sincere promises, you sweat profusely, you hope the other party says yes, you get down on your knees and beg. Doing a marriage proposal is in fact good practice for a thesis proposal. And although it is a little bit tongue in the cheek, it does highlight some of the key elements that is necessary in a proposal. You make sincere promises. You have to foresee certain things, and you're expected to fulfill those promises that you make. Also, you sweat profusely, so it takes a lot of mental effort to write a research proposal. And just like in a marriage proposal, you have to choose your words very carefully and correctly, and do a lot of planning, and can cause some anxiety. And the last element that it highlights about doing a proposal is it's a persuasive text. It's not just informative. You're trying to convince the department, the university, a supervisor to let you do the research. You want them to say yes. And yeah, those are just some of the key elements of a proposal. And what makes a proposal very challenging is that it is at the same time a type of preparatory text. It's pre-writing. It's not the actual research yet, but at the same time, it's a finished product. It lays the groundwork for further study and sells the viability of your research, but it also has to read as an independent text, as something that is good enough to go through to the next stage. And if you think about your research, your entire research journey, as a progress line, not a timeline, a progress line, where about 55 to 60% into this process is where you submit your proposal. So you basically do 60% of the work in 20% of the time. And then when you do the thesis, you do the other 40% of the work, but now you have 80% of the time left. And so it takes a lot of effort to lay that groundwork, but it is useful because it helps your reader to see whether or not your research is worthwhile and feasible. Does it have scientific merit? And is it doable? It's also, and it makes the thesis process, the research project process, a lot easier if the proposal is done properly. It also helps the reader and yourself to see if you are able to do the research. I don't mean in terms of intellectual capacity, that's a given. You wouldn't have reach this stage of your studies if you couldn't do it. You can absolutely do it. It's thinking about the practicalities. What resources do you need access to? How much time do you have available? How much depth can you go? How broad can the study be? And you'll probably need to narrow it down quite a bit. And it's perfectly normal when we start out with writing a research proposal to start with a topic that is massive, because we're thinking about the size of a thesis or a dissertation and the work that goes into it. But usually the expectation is not to go a mile wide, but to go a mile deep. And you want to be sure that you have all the necessary support resources to embark on this process. And the proposal helps you to narrow down the scope to make it a possible or a feasible project. And then the persuasiveness comes in again. You want to convince your supervisor, the department, the university, your project has scientific merit. It is doable, and that you have thought of all the different contingencies that might affect your ability to do the research. It becomes like a contract between you and the supervisor, where you promise to do certain things and the supervisor promises to support you in achieving your goals. And the proposal basically answers 3 questions, and these are things that you want to think about before starting the proposal. You're thinking about what is the problem that you want to investigate, but also why, in terms of why is this problem relevant? Why is this problem of importance? And then thinking about specifically the design and methodology that you want to make topic specific. How will you investigate the problem? And those 3 questions you keep answering throughout the entire proposal. In some sections, a little bit more, might be more reliant on one question than another. So, for example, how the problem will be investigated would be very much at the forefront of your design and methodology. The what will be scattered throughout, and the why will be especially strong in the background, in the preliminary literature review, the aim and objectives in those sections. Now, to get started with the proposal and to start narrowing it down, I'd like us to do some nutshell writing. Now, nutshell writing is when you write small little bits of text, and the function of the small little bit of text is to either, maybe you're already busy with your proposal. You already have gathered a lot of information, and it's starting to feel quite overwhelming, and you're worried about losing focus. Nutshell writing can help with refocusing your writing, bringing your ideas back together to something manageable, to something feasible. Nutshell writing also works if you're starting out. It helps you to get started, get you to a starting point where you go, okay, I'm going to write a tiny bit of text, and then take that tiny bit of text and flesh it out. And you can even use components of the proposal as nutshell writing to help you flesh out larger parts of your section. Things like the problem statement, research question, hypotheses, the aim and objectives, all of those can be used as nutshell writing. But we'll start with a different nutshell for now. So what I would like you to do, I'd like you for yourself, let me just quickly go back. For yourself somewhere, you can also write it in the chat. It would be lovely if you could write it in the chat. We are going to share it on a different platform just now. I want you to write one sentence that answers 3 questions. It's going to be a clumsy and a long sentence, but the reason I want you to write this in one sentence is so that it's as focused as possible. So no extra explanations and development, just one sentence that answers that's the core of answering these 3 questions. So the first question is, what are you researching? And the prompt is, I'm researching, let's say, the existence of unicorns. Let's do that. Why is this topic important or relevant? So I'm researching the existence of unicorns in order to learn how unicorns stay hidden, or in order to learn why unicorns are extinct, or whatever. Yeah, I'm using a very silly example. Um, and then the last question, what is your aim? So I'm researching unicorns in order to learn why unicorns are invisible so that we can build a new detection machine to observe unicorns. That was a very silly example, but you can do this now with your own research. So I'm just going to switch off my sound. I'm going to give you a minute or two to write your single sentence answering these three questions. Oh, lovely. I see sentences coming in. Um, if you want to, you can share your sentence on this platform. I'll quickly I'm going to switch between that. I'll quickly put the link in in the chat as well. And I'll show you how you can add if you want to add your sentence there, because that will then be a space where you can give feedback to each other, see each other's sentences. Quickly going to share my window. And here it is. So to share your sentence, you'll see that here at the bottom right-hand corner is a little plus sign that says post. You just click on it and this will open. And then you write in the subject line, you write your name. And then where it says write something beautiful, you write your sentence. Or you can just copy and paste your sentence into it. And you click at the top right here is publish, and then it will show up here. I would like us as a group, while you're busy adding your sentences, I'm going to Mr. Scarfu, is it okay if we use your sentence to discuss it?
Yes, ma'am. No problem.
Perfect. Okay, I'm quickly going to add yours. I'm going to edit my one. Edit. And I'm going to add your sentence. And then we can give feedback on Mr. Scarfu's sentence. I just quickly want to add it. To that. Just add the I in front of it. There we go. Ah, there we go. Okay. Oh, and I see there's some people who've added it to that. Very nice. Oh, and you've added your own one. Wonderful. So Vuyisile says, I'm researching. I'm just going to change the color of it. Oops. I'm going to make it, let's make it a pretty color. The green will look nice. So Vuyisile's sentence is, I'm researching the effect of transformational leadership by nurse managers in order to learn about how this leadership style affects the work environment of nurses so that a positive work environment can be achieved. That is, I like the sentence. Can we get feedback from people in the session? What do you think of Mr. Vuyisile's sentence? What works for you? Do you have questions about it? What do you think? You can type in the chat, or you can raise your hand. I'm going to take the silence to mean that they love your sentence for you, Sile. It is a good sentence. It's very focused. May I ask how far you are with your proposal?
Hi, ma'am. I've been having an ups and down. What happened is that I tried to look at the Prisma checklist, but later on,
Oh
as I
yeah.
was checking my research, I saw that there is another link on the library that you can
Mm.
follow that talks about systemic reviews. So
Oh
when I checked
yes.
that one as well, I then saw other systematic reviews and their proposals. So I was now going
Mm.
to look at what I was doing with the Prisma checklist because I was still busy with the abstract checklist within the Prisma checklist. So I needed now to go back and look at the
Mm.
information so that I can slot it using that example I saw then online. So I can say that I'm still starting.
Yeah. But it sounds as if you've already done quite a lot of that preparatory work, and I can see it in your sentence that is very focused. You know exactly what you're researching. You have the motivation in order to learn about how this leadership style affects the work environment, and you have a goal so that a positive work environment can be achieved. So very, very good. Very nice. Um, I'm quickly going to see here if we can give feedback on one more one. If there's someone who would like, oh, just because I love the name, Miss Librarian. I don't know whose it is, but Miss Librarian, if you don't mind, if we can take yours. I'm going to make your one blue. So, Miss Librarian says, I'm researching pedagogical skills development of early career academics in order to unpack the experiences, difficulties of new academics who assume teaching roles with no prior teaching experience. Yes. Um, so feedback for Miss Librarian. What do you think about her sentence? Do you have any questions? I do have one question. I don't see the so that. So once you have unpacked those difficulties or experiences of new academics with teaching specifically, what would you have achieved? What would be your end goal in unpacking those experiences or difficulties? I just realized it might not have been a good idea to choose someone who chose a pseudonym because you might not want to identify yourself. Is there anyone specific who might? Yeah, so my advice would just be for Ms. Librarian to add the so that and think about what it is that you would like to achieve. We have time for one more person who would like us to look, a volunteer, who would like us to give feedback on their sentence.
You can look at mine, Prudence.
Prudence. Let's quickly see where's Prudence. This one, is it on? Oh, there we go. Excellent. Prudence, I'm going to make yours yellow. So Prudence says, I'm researching about antibiotic resistance in wastewater treatment plants in order to learn why AMR persists in the environment and how non-antibiotic factors contribute to this problem using metatranscriptomic so that we can develop effective strategies to mitigate AMR. Very nice. Prudence, do you have any concerns about your sentence that you would like to have specific feedback on?
Yes, I feel like it's very cluttered and the way it's ordered, it's not as perfect as I would love to. It's too long.
Of course, yeah, of course, it will be too long. It's in terms of sentence structure, it would not work, but you're saying that it feels cluttered, and a bit all over the place. Any feedback for Prudence on this from the group? Yes, Vuyisile.
I think why Prudence think that maybe it's a bit cluttered. I see that in her sentence she has also included the comparison, if I am not mistaken, because there is a part where she say, and in order to learn why AMR persists in the environment and how non-antibiotic factors contribute to this problem. So maybe is it because she has compared now that AMR persistence in the environment and the antibiotic factors. But for me, I think she has covered most of the questions, the three main questions in her sentence. But probably the comparison is the one that seems or appears to her that she has a lot in her sentence. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for that, Vuyisile. Prudence, does that feedback help?
Yes, yes. Actually, I think I had to reword it in a way that shows that antibiotics have been purported to be the main causes of AMR in that environment. But emerging studies are showing that non-antibiotic factors are also contributing factors in the rise of AMR in wastewater, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that could be, and since you say that you have noticed that in the research that you've done so far, it sounds like there is a valid reason to include how those non-antibiotic factors add to the problem. You have, what also made it a little bit long is you have a little bit of your method you're going to use. Meta, I'm not going to pronounce that word again. You're going to use that. So that could also, but I agree with Vuyisile, quite focused. You answered the question, and I'm not even from the field, and I could follow. And then you have some feedback in the chat as well from Mr. Katewera. The research idea is very relevant and timely, especially with the growing concern around environmental AMR. So very well done, Prudence.
Thank you.
Well done. So I'll keep that up for a while, and you're all welcome to add feedback for each other. So, oops, I now took that away. You'll see underneath the, I'm going to make this bigger. You'll see underneath each of the contributions, there's a bit that says add comments. So you can just add the plus, where you can then add comments, ask questions, and then people can get feedback from each other about these sentences, how to make it more focused. Obviously, the structure itself will be a little bit challenging, so we won't comment on that because I asked you to answer 3 questions in one sentence, which is a lot of heaviness for a sentence to carry. So we'll get back to the slides now. But what this sentence is, and we're going to get back to your sentences now, just now again, is with the sentences, it works nicely as, I just want to go back to this slide. It works well as a nutshell writing because it helps you to refocus. So those of you already busy with your proposal, it can help you just refocus on what is your main topic. What is the main reason you're doing it? What is your primary goal that you hope to achieve? But for those who are starting out, it becomes a starting point where you put in your topic and then you can take that, flesh it out and give more background on the topic. You explain why you want to learn this. So it provides the motivation of why this topic is relevant. My apologies, I just quickly want to mute myself. Sorry, I don't know if you were hearing my dogs bark in the background. And yeah, and the so that is then the beginning of your aim and objectives, where you state what is my main aim, and you can flesh that out with your secondary goals or objectives. Now, before we go back to the sentence so they can show how you can use it for different parts of your proposal, just briefly, I do get a lot of emails from people asking if we have a template for a proposal. And there isn't one generic template that's appropriate for everyone. So usually our suggestion is to find out from your department what template they have, or discuss with your supervisor what are the elements they want in there and how they want it organized. Because different fields approach proposals and protocols differently. And so there is no one size fits all. But broadly speaking, these are the elements that will be in most proposals. You'll have a working title, and it's a working title because the title in most cases, you'll still be adapting and fiddling around with your title until the very day you submit. You're not changing the topic, you're not changing the focus or the project itself. You are just fiddling with the wording of the title, and that's what's called a working title. And especially at the proposal stage, you'll be fiddling around with the title a lot as you refine your ideas and you develop it and you narrow down your topic. Most proposals will have an introduction where you give some background information, you provide the rationale, that what and why. Not all proposals have an introduction. Some proposals use their preliminary literature review as the introduction to the whole proposal. Like, what is the gap in the literature? What is there? What's missing? And why that is a problem? Why does it have to be addressed? Other proposals, they already start with a research problem. They don't start with a background. They start with, say, the research problem, which could be either a problem statement and or research questions. And then they flesh that out and explain what is the background to this problem. A lot of most proposals, I want to say all of proposals, will have an aim and objectives. They might call it different things. They might call it goal and objectives, or objective and aims, or primary objective and secondary objectives, but they all want the same thing. They want an overarching goal that you would like to achieve. And then which would be, in this case, what I, for the sake of consistency here, I call an aim. And then objectives listed underneath that, which are like little action steps that can be ticked off, that will help you once you've ticked off all those objectives. Then you know that you've achieved your aim. And I put propositions and hypotheses in brackets because not all proposals have them. When you have a hypothesis or a proposition, you're doing very specific kind of research, and you'll only include a proposition or hypothesis if it is that you're going to test something very specific and you have expectations about what you hope to see, what results you're going to get. And then you also have different, and then all the proposals will have design and methodology, how you're going to conduct the research. And that needs to be usually stated up front so that your reader knows that you have an action plan of what you're going to do, and you are aware of what designs and methodologies exist. And as with the rest of the proposal, this is also a persuasive component, not just informative of I am going to do X, Y, and Z. It's also persuading your reader that the strategies that you have chosen, the measuring instruments, the methods, that is all relevant. It's all appropriate for your type of study. Then you'll also have a little bit of a time frame. Budget I put in brackets because not all research requires a budget. Chapter or article outline, and your references. So what I'd like us to do is I want us to go back to your sentences And I see Miss Coele. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your surname correctly. Said you would also like yours to be looked at. So I'm going to take yours as an example of how to use that sentence to create a title for your proposal or for your thesis. Let me quickly go back and we'll share. Ms. Coele, what is your name, or which one is yours? Have you added yours to
So
the... Yes.
mine is below auto on the far right.
Ah, there we go. Okay. Perfect. I'm going to make it red so that I don't lose it. Okay. So you say that I'm researching about the mechanisms, I'm not going to pronounce that, of yeast because it causes wine spoilage, so that wine spoilage can be prevented. Okay. And you said your concern about the sentence is you have the challenge of generalizing instead of summarizing. Okay. We can work with what you have here. I'm going to edit it slightly. So I'm researching the mechanisms of that. Do we know how it causes wine spoilage, or why it causes wine spoilage?
Yes, so the yeast loves sugar, so
Okay.
that's where it works optimally or thrives.
Okay, so would it be accurate to say you're researching the mechanisms of yeast in order to further understand how it causes wine spoilage so that wine spoilage can be prevented? Would that middle bit, would that be an accurate, but that I'm now highlighting, would that be an accurate
Yes.
motivation? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So I'm going to update. And then as part of the comment, so I'm going to now show, okay. Oh, no. Okay, so I'm just going to write there. So now usually one rule of thumb for anything that you write is everything that you write has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And whatever you want to emphasize, you place that as close as possible to the beginning. Whether it's a sentence, a title, a paragraph, you want your most important information. Right, I'm going to have to edit this again. You want your most important information to be close to the beginning. So out of all these words that you have in your sentence, what is your most important, or rather, yeah, what are the most important keywords in this sentence?
So the important words are wine spoilage.
Wine spoilage, definitely. Any others that are also important?
The name of the yeast, so you can say yeast.
Yes, the name of the yeast. Anything else?
Mechanisms.
Yeah, mechanisms, because that's specifically what you're looking at. You're not just generally looking at just the yeast in general. Anything else that you want to highlight?
No, maybe causes, but yeah, that's
yeah,
all.
causes can also, yeah, because it's specifically that connection between them. Very good. Okay. Now, out of those words that you highlighted, which one would you like to put first? Which of those phrases, words is the most important in the main focus of your study?
The yeast.
Okay. I'm going to try my best to spell that. Like, I can't say it.
You can say yeast, that's fine. Oh,
The yeast.
that's okay.
So we have zygo something. Okay. And then I'm going to put little dots. What would you like to put after that keyword?
I would say mechanisms.
Mechanisms. What would you put after that? I'll explain the dots just now.
Causes wine spoilage.
Very nice. Okay. Now, I put in the 3 little dots. So we first just list the most important words or phrases that you've identified. What words can you use to connect the yeast with mechanisms? Do you need a word?
I don't think in between those I need a word. But
yes.
After mechanisms, I think I'll say a word.
What would you use to connect the 2 phrases?
I'm still thinking about it.
That's perfectly okay. We can also have suggestions from people in the audience. Would anyone like to make a suggestion about how to connect these 2 ideas together, or 2 phrases together? Sorry, I just quickly want to get back to. Oh, and I made it. Yes, I see someone's hand is up. Bronwyn. Hi, Bronwyn.
Hi, Selene. Would the word to determine work?
Yes, that would work perfectly.
Yes, excellent. Excellent. Anyone else wants to suggest this? To determine what someone had explore? To determine or to explore? And maybe not the causes, but explore how it causes wine spoilage. Determine how, or to explore. Yeah. Very nice. Are you happy with that?
I'm
Ms.
very
Quello?
happy.
Great. I'm gonna post the comment, so you can do the same with your own. I just want to. Now it won't. Sorry, now everything is frozen on my side. Let's try this again. I'm gonna move it. There we go. So you can do the same with your own sentences now and use it to create a title. Even if you already have a title, it's sometimes nice to see what you come up with doing this, and see if you maybe want to adapt something, or maybe you think, oh, my initial title is absolutely brilliant. So you're welcome to play around with that, and you can still give each other feedback on your titles and on your sentences as well, even after this session. So we have 15 minutes left, and I want to show you another tiny text that you can use. Now, I did say that not all proposals will have a hypothesis or a proposition. But even if you don't have one, you can write a hypothesis or proposition for yourself to help, again, with refocusing and giving you direction in your writing, or as a starting point where you can go, okay, I need to go from, this is where I want to start, this is where I want to end up, this is where I'm going. What's useful about hypothesis is that it is a suggested preliminary answer or solution, but it but it has to be very specific. So that's where it helps with the narrowing down, and it gives a sense of direction, of where you want to go. So you know where you're starting. So if this is the situation, you know, I'm starting here, then I want to end up there. And you can use a hypothesis that you write for yourself to determine what design and methodology you want to use. And we'll look at how you can do that just now. So it gives you direction. It also will help and assist in helping you collect and analyze, interpret the data, because if you know, so if I think about the proposal is like a map where you explain in detail to someone how to get from Stellenbosch to Cape Town. A hypothesis is just very briefly, because there's multiple ways that you can get from Stellenbosch to Cape Town. A hypothesis would be telling your reader, I want to get from Stellenbosch to Cape Town via the N1. So it tells you what direction you have to take. But it then also helps you, if I want to take that route to get to Cape Town, what type of data do I need? How do I need to collect the data? And then how can I interpret the data? And it always needs to have a strong link with the problem or the problem statement or research question, because as in the previous slide, it's a problem, it's an answer or a solution to a question or a problem that you first have to test. And that's why it will have the same keywords and very closely linked to the problem statement or the research questions. So I'd like us to consider, just in terms of what makes something a good hypothesis, what do you think about this as a hypothesis? Because remember, it has to be specific, and it also shouldn't be rigid. The hypothesis shouldn't read like something that you are assuming to be true. What do you think about this as a hypothesis? Overfishing affects the stocks of cod. I see some people giving it a thumbs up. You think it's good. Anyone thinks that it can be improved? Excellent. Joseph says affects how. Hi, Joseph. Joseph says affects how. We are assuming it negatively affects it, that it causes decline, but we're not sure. Celie, you also have I saw your hand up briefly. You want to add something?
No, I'm captured by the previous speaker, ma'am.
Okay. And then I like Philip said, what about the other fish? Yes, what about the other fish? And then Mr. Katiwera says, overfishing where? Yeah, because, you know, that can also affect it. Very nice. So it's not specific enough. And it's leading the reader to make some assumptions. It also doesn't tell us overfishing in what way, like big, massive nets, as a trawlers, what type of fishing is affecting the stocks of cod. One way, it also, while it's not very specific enough, it also doesn't sound tentative enough. It sounds like a statement that we accept this is true, that overfishing affects the stocks of cod, which it might not. It might not be overfishing. There might be something else that affect the cod. And one way in which, so you don't worry too much if you have about the technicalities of hypothesis. You can have a null and alternate hypothesis where you state something in the positive and you state it in the negative to show that I haven't made up my mind, I'm checking. But a formulation that works quite nicely with hypotheses to make sure that it sounds tentative but still being specific is the if-then formulation. If overfishing is causing a decline in the numbers of cod, and now we know specifically, like Joseph asked, affects how. We still don't know about the other fish though. Then reducing the amount of trawlers will increase cardstocks. And what makes this, the if then creates that tentativeness. We're going to say, if this is the effect, then that might happen. They also, sorry, I'm now talking about something else. It also shows us, it shows us the beginning and the end points. We can imagine what the writer is going to do their study. They're going to count the numbers of cod. They're going to count the number of trawlers. We now know what types of ship or what types of fishing. They are going to take some of the trawlers away, and then they're going to after a while, they're going to recount the numbers of cod. And then they'll see, okay, the numbers of cod have now increased. Again, this is not a perfect hypothesis, but it does show the beginning and end points. It shows the different variables. What are you going to manipulate? What will the independent variable affect? So it shows, the broad route, and the writer can then use this to give some background about where we are now, that there's problems of overfishing in this particular area. They can flesh out the details. This is how it's affected numerous types of fish, specifically cod. It helps them with their design and methodology, where they describe, what they're going to do, and where they hope to end up. They're anticipating that the numbers of stock will increase. So we can see how they're going to get from Stellenbosch to Cape Town. And you can do the same for yourself. I don't think we have time now, but you can for yourself. Just write a hypothesis for yourself and see if that helps you to determine, where do I want to start with this? Where do I want to end up, which would be your goal, your main aim again? And what route am I going to take to get there? Now, just a little bit of a disclaimer. The if-then formulation does not always make a good hypothesis. There has to be a logical connection between the beginnings and the ends. So, for example, you can't just say, if I play the lottery, then I will get rich. There has to be a logical causal link between the two elements that you mention. And then you can flesh it out to build the rest of your proposal, and especially your design and methodology. Now, just to reiterate what we talked about in the beginning, that although proposals are difficult to write, they have numerous different challenges, but they're very useful. If you do a proposal well, it makes the research project process a lot easier. Now, the proposal isn't set in stone. I can go back to the analogy of geography. Those of you who've maybe already done a master's, you would have noticed that your proposal for your master's and what you ended up putting and how you ended up writing your actual master's thesis, that it doesn't look exactly the way you set it out. And that's absolutely fine. That's the reason a proposal exists, because now your reader can see, I can trust PVCLA to go and do research because they have thought about all the possible contingencies. They've thought about all the possible things that can happen. They're well prepared. They've packed their car. They can go on this journey. But things can happen. So you have told your reader you're going to go from Stellenbosch to Cape Town via the N1, but there's flooding and you can't use the N1 anymore, and you need to pivot and find a different route. But because you've done proper preparation with your proposal, then that helps you to determine what other route you need to take so that you can still get to Cape Town. So it's a blueprint. It's not set in stone. And the different parts will develop into different sections, which I'll quickly no, I'm not showing that. Will develop into different sections or chapters. So your proposal, usually, you don't throw it out of the window. You're not done with it. Once you finish your proposal and it's accepted, you rework it and it becomes your introductory chapter. Your literature review, preliminary literature review, comes out of the proposal usually, and becomes a fully fledged chapter on its own. Usually the design and methodology comes out of the proposal and becomes a fully fledged chapter on its own as well. And that's why the original planning is so important. It means you've already written large chunks of your thesis, or started to write chunks of your thesis. You're well prepared, so you can adapt or adjust to anything that happens that throws a curveball at you, because you know what's going on in the field. So this is my last slide, just about where you can get more help. While I'm explaining where you can get more help, you're welcome to type any other questions in the chat if you have any others. So we offer at the Writing Lab, we offer one-to-one consultations for your writing. These consultations are free for all Stellenbosch University students and staff, and you can make use of it as often as you want. We do it online and in person. I will share the slides with Kirchner to distribute to everyone who attended. And you can just book a consultation or contact Ms. Lakay for more information about it. There's my details as well. You can email me if you have any questions about our workshops, which are sadly not free. Or you can, and at the moment our website is still being updated, so the workshop dates aren't updated, but I will also share the workshop dates with Kirchner to distribute to you as well. And then we also have a reading lab where they help you with their if you need help with critical reading or reading for comprehension, which is a large chunk of your research journey, is reading a lot of stuff. Oh, thank you, Kirchner. I forgot to mention that. Yes, the Writing Lab, we also do consultations in the library's Research Commons. So we have a fixed time in the Research Commons where we collaborate with the library, and you can come for consultations there as well. And then I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on this very cold winter day. And again, thank you to the library for inviting me to be part of their research week. I really appreciate it. And I enjoyed working with all of you. Thank you for sharing your sentences, and I hope it helped. Does anyone have any other questions?
Any other questions, colleagues? Okay, it looks like, but I must say, colleagues were engaged, in terms of the chat function already. So I really appreciate the audience, for having actively participated in this session. But I must also thank you, Selene, for the good work that you have done. Really, I liked, the analogy of a research proposal as a marriage proposal. The only thing that you didn't say is that it can also be rejected, like a marriage proposal can be. But I also liked, the question of what, why, and how.
Sabira, I think we've lost your audio.
Yes, can you hear me now, Kirchner?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I like the question of what, why, and how. I mean, for me, it applies across all the sections, even of a thesis and dissertation. If you go to the methodology, you have to justify, everything to say, I'm doing qualitative, why qualitative, and how are you going to do it? So it's very important to always keep that in mind whenever you are writing, whatever research that you are writing, to say what and why and how. So it's very important to respond to those questions. And thank you for encouraging, audience participation by asking questions. And I also did say that I'm thankful to the audience for having contributed. Now, colleagues, our next session will be from 12 until 1. It says from thesis or dissertation to publication, getting your ideas out to the world, or killing your darlings. So this would be the next session at 12, and we'll meet at 12. And thank you so much. Until then. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.